Tonight, we're hearing from the archaeologists who discovered the centuries-old remains in Jamestown recently.
But they aren't just any remains. They may be those of Sir George Yardley, one of the first governors of the colony of Virginia. 13 News Now reporter Nico Clemens has our story.
Each set of remains has its own fascinating story.
Archaeologists may be solving one of the greatest mysteries in Jamestown.
So we ended up working from the western end.
Archaeologists with Jamestown Rediscovery believe they found one of the colony's first leaders, Sir George Yardley. Yardley oversaw the first representative government assembly in English America in 1619.
Your words were, if it's not Sir George Yardley, then
who in the world is it?
Right. So
because this is so prominently placed, it's someone who definitely wanted to be remembered.
Yardley died in 1627. He was about 40 years old. Almost 400 years later, archaeologists say they now have many of the pieces to learn more about this former governor.
we can tell the nation and the world who these people were.
Jamestown ultimately flourished under Sir George Yardley. He brought stability to the colony, and he gave citizens back their rights, whereas before they were under a very strict military law.
David Gibbons and Mary Anna Hartley say they've been doing an extensive burial project in this church for some time. Archaeologists dug up Yardley's remains just days ago. Archaeologists actually found Yardley's skull and teeth back in November and were able to match the teeth with the remains of the skull.
Remember when your mom said you are what you eat? You are. And so we look at what's in people's bones.
There's much more forensic work to be done to find out more about Yardley. Gibbons and Hartley say this is only the beginning.
It's a bit of a long road, but we'll get there.
They believe there's more history to uncover. In Jamestown, Nico Clemens, 13 News Now.